Well, next to my own enshrinement, nothing could make me more proud than the honor of presenting Charles A. Buck Rowe. I've known Buck Rowe for over 15 years, but I first heard about him in 1940 when I flew in the Gulf Oil Corporation light plane cavalcade to Florida. Buck had joined Gulf in 1937 and was already a living legend. Few people in aviation have achieved so much in so many disciplines. Wise, witty, but uncommonly modest for an aviator, Buck, as the master of ceremonies told you, will be 102 on July 11. But if you ask him to what does he attribute his age, he'll simply say, to the fact I was born a long time ago. Had it not been for World War I, aviation might have lost Buck to the major leagues. He was that good. In fact, he attended Gettysburg College on a baseball scholarship. He played his first pro game in 1914 and soon was considered to be one of the brightest stars on the minor league circuit on the East Coast. But war intervened and Buck joined the Navy in 1917, and after transferring to the Naval Air Service, which in itself is a story, he won his wings of gold the following spring. He had three options, two of which involved duty in the States. But Buck wanted to get to France as quickly as possible and end the war. He had a lovely girl waiting for him, and he was to get married, and he did, following the war. But that's the reason, folks, that he chose night bombing, even though he'd been told that the average life of a night bomber pilot in combat was 11 hours. During night training, Buck remarked that he'd do a lot better if he could see the damn target. And his instructor said, "I'm sorry, Rowe, but even for you, the Germans won't turn on their lights." Buck was assigned to the Northern Bombing Group, composed of Navy and Marine squadrons. The Marines bombed by day, and the Navy bombed by night, and that figures. Military historians have described the group's mission as the most ambitious project undertaken by naval aviation in World War I. Buck's Night Wing was the first night bombing unit in Navy history. It flew Italian Capronis against enemy submarine bases along the Belgian coast, but against U-boats, it flew Curtiss HS-1 and HS-2 flying boats made in America. The Allies were losing a ship a day in the ocean areas off the French coast. After Navy pilots took to the skies at night as well as by day, the losses were cut to zero. Following the war, Buck participated in early experiments that led to major advances in naval air operations and technology. In those days, they had no radios. Pilots had carrier pigeons on board to notify home base in the event of emergency. One time when Buck was forced down at sea, a more than infrequent occurrence, he saw his communication suddenly fly away without any distress message. A nervous crewman accidentally released both the birds before attaching Buck's handwritten notes calling for help. A few years later, Buck went on inactive duty and flew commercial charter flights from Florida through the West Indies, blazing new trails in air transportation. He also served as chief pilot for a small airline connecting Miami with Cuba. And when the Department of Commerce organized the aeronautics branch in the late 1920s, Buck became one of its first inspectors. The branch was a progenitor of the FAA we know today. Buck was handpicked for the job by none other than Clarence Young, then Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Aeronautics. The Navy's top brass had given Young glowing reports on Buck. Buck was soon promoted to supervisor in charge of the southwestern U.S., based in Dallas. In 1932, he was sent to Los Angeles with orders to clean up the mess out there, and it was pretty messy. As head of a multi-state region which included Arizona, Buck and his small staff did it all, from licensing pilots to approving new aircraft, designs, and controlling airport safety. But regulating aviation back then was about as easy as balancing a dime on the point of a needle. Many veteran pilots had been flying for years without any rules. One protesting flyer barged into Buck's office and loudly proclaimed that he had more time in forced landings than government inspectors had in the air. As the federal officer responsible for enforcing aviation laws, Buck never saw himself as a policeman. He told constituents he was there to help them, but he meant it. Soon he became widely known and respected for being fair and just in all his dealings. Later, these fine qualities would serve him well at Gulf, where he developed business relationships with many of the same people he had helped in his days with the Department of Commerce. A number of high-placed dignitaries have sent Buck congratulatory letters extolling his work in an aviation career that has spanned almost half a century. All pay tribute to Buck's service to his country and to his integrity and his leadership during the air industry's formative years. FAA Administrator Jane Garvey summed it up well when she wrote, and I quote, "Those of us here at the Federal Aviation Administration owe you a great debt of gratitude for your contributions to this agency and the flying public. Through your pioneering efforts of over 60 years ago, the United States enjoys an extraordinary level of safety and reliability in civil aviation. In an era when aviation was still in its infancy, you brought sound judgment, creativity, vision, and dedication to the task. One has only to look at today's modern aircraft to appreciate and thank you for your exceptional accomplishments." Signed, Jane F. Garvey, Administrator, Federal Aviation Administration. Buck, old friend, you've seen your duty and you've done it noble. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply honored to present for induction into the Arizona Aviation Hall of Fame a distinguished American and a true aviation pioneer, Mr. Charles A. Buck Rowe.
I think Mr. Greenwood said it all when he told my past history. Started in 1917 and run for 50 years. I see the results not here tonight. I've always enjoyed being with aviation people and aviation events. And so this is one of those. I'm reminded of another convention I attended where a friend of mine was called on to speak about how to do it, just make it short. So he said, got up and said, I attended the convention, had a hell of a good time, and so I'll stand by his remarks.
Thank you, Buck. Thank you very much, Buck. I just have a few things to add to that. Buck also wanted me to say that he wanted to thank all of those who had a hand in his nomination and selection, all of those members of the Board of Trustees and the Selection Committee. And he also wanted me to say that the fact he didn't finish his dinner is no reflection on its taste and quality. He thoroughly enjoyed what he was able to consume, but said that with his dentures, it's hard for him to chew hard liquor. I should also mention a few of the other prominent people who wrote personal letters to Buck, congratulating him on tonight's induction. And among them were retired Navy Vice Admiral Jerry Unruh, President of the Association of Naval Aviation, on behalf of Admiral Stan Arthur, Chairman, and Admiral Thomas Murr, Chairman Emeritus. Stated Admiral Unruh, for your entry into the Navy in 1917 and combat action in World War I as a Navy night bomber pilot to your later years as a naval reservist on active duty, your feats have made an indelible and lasting impact on naval aviation. Lieutenant General Jim Keck, National Commander of the Dedalians, who sends congratulations to all the Dedalians being honored tonight, and points out that Buck is one of 9 founding members still living. George Larson, Air and Space Magazine editor and a noted aviation historian. David Fulton, also a pilot and director of the Texas Department of Transportation Aviation Division, which was formerly called the Texas Aeronautics Commission, on which Buck once served with distinction. Vice Admiral John Mazach, commander of the Naval Air Force, U.S. Atlantic Fleet. Retired Vice Admiral Donald Engen, himself a naval aviator, combat veteran, and now director of the National Air and Space Museum, who wrote, "It is people such as you who have made it possible for people like me to follow in your footsteps." And the Joint Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral J.L. Johnson, who said in his letter to Buck, "Yours is truly an impressive legacy of service to military and civil aviation. Again, my warmest congratulations on being selected for this well-deserved honor." And from Gettysburg College, where Buck played center field for the Bullets baseball team, the accolades were equally effusive. The college publication Spectrum for 1917 had this to say about Buck's performance in the 1915 baseball season. Buck Rowe proved to be a speedy outer gardener with a deadly arm and was a fast base runner and a timely hitter. Now, Buck may have slowed some, but he's still fast with a quip and timely with an opinion on anything from professional sports to political correctness and the sorry state of world affairs. Gettysburg recruited Buck from the Boys Latin School of Maryland, which also provided us with some interesting information. School records for 1913-14 show that Buck, and I quote, "was a very good boy, excellent athlete, was offered scholarship by Gettysburg College on account of his baseball." The report also indicated that Buck was an above-average student in all subjects but one, physical science. And I asked Buck about that. What's physical science? Yeah. And I said, well, I'm not sure, but I think it has to do with natural laws and processes. But it also might be studies of the human anatomy. No wonder, said Buck. They didn't have any women there. Buck Rowe is more than an aviation pioneer, more than a founding member of the Dedalians, more than a remarkable, heroic centenarian. He's a national treasure. So once again, neighbor, congratulations from all of us here tonight.
Thank you, Jim and Buck. That Buck sure knows how to give a speech, doesn't he? Keep him short. Stand up and talk and relax, whatever you want to do. Thank you for coming.
Hey, Newt.
Hey, Hotshot, how are you?
What do you say? Gee, Newt, this is Doc Dillhofer and my partner, Axel Olsen. Hey, you guys. This is Newton Potts. He was my squadron leader in France. What are you doing? You know he got 11 planes, Doc?
Oh, I've heard a lot about Mr. Potts. What brings you down here?
You do, Mr. Dillhofer. I'm the regional air inspector here for the Department of Commerce. I'm afraid I'm going to have to shut you down.
What?
On who in the hell's authority?
The Air Commerce Act. Your air circus is operating in direct violation of the Civil Aeronautics Code.
Hey, come off it, Newt. What is all
The
this?
fun games are over, Waldo. You guys have been scaring the hell out of people for too long. Flying is getting to be big business, and people got to figure it's safe.
You think you can come in here and wave a couple of papers and ruin our livelihood just like that?
You meet the requirements in here, and you can fly again. But your planes have to be licensed, your pilot's licensed. No stunting over congested areas, no wing walking. It's all in there. When you're ready for inspection, let me know, and I'll come back. But until then, you're grounded.
Gee, do you think if I study real hard, Newt, I might pass? Are you going to license the clouds and the rain? You going to put highways in the sky for people to follow?
Yep, all that too. Along with airlines and airmail, and there's going to be big money in it too if you're smart.
Well, I'm no chauffeur, and I'm no mailman. I'm a flyer, Newt.
I'm afraid not anymore, Waldo. Not until an investigation has been held into the death of that girl.
Waldo and Axel wanted to save her.
Then that will come out in the investigation. But until then, everybody involved in the incident will not be issued licenses.
And when's that gonna be?
The regional board convenes in Wichita in 6 weeks.
Now listen, I got a contract with the Muncie Fair in 2 weeks. I need Waldo and Axel to fly. You can't do this to me.
I've got nothing to do with it. It's Congress and you guys. You've done it to yourselves. Why don't you all grow up? Waldo, you're the greatest natural flyer I've ever seen in my life. If the war had gone on a little longer, you might have proved that to everyone. But that kind of flying is finished. You're gonna have to learn to live with it. I'm sorry, Hotshot. Dillhofer, I'll be in touch.
Oh, Shenandoah, I love your daughter. Away, you rolling river. Oh, Shenandoah, I long to see you. Away, we're bound away. Cross the wide Missouri. Oh, Shenandoah, I'll take your daughter away, you rolling river. Oh, far across the wide blue water, away, we're bound away, cross the wide see you